Look at the pantry. There sits a plastic bottle of clear, yellow liquid. The label claims, "Heart Healthy." The expiration date is 2 years from now. Yet, if the cap is left open, the liquid transforms. The substance becomes sticky, coating the plastic in a resin-like varnish. The smell changes to that of drying paint. This is not food. This is a chemical experiment reacting to oxygen. Now, look back 500 years to a medieval larder. A stoneware crock sits in the corner, covered only by a wooden lid. Inside rests a solid, snow-white block of rendered pork fat, lard. This substance has sat at room temperature for 6 months. It does not smell. It does not stick. It remains pure, dense, and biologically compatible energy. The modern consumer has been sold a deadly paradox. Society is told that the ancient white block will stop the heart, while the industrial yellow liquid will save the heart. Yet, medieval medical records and skeletal analysis show a population with strong bones, wide dental arches, and a near-total absence of modern metabolic diseases. The medieval peasant ate massive quantities of saturated animal fat every single day. The modern human avoids fat, eats seed oils, and suffers from chronic inflammation, obesity, and heart failure at rates never seen in history. This is not a coincidence. This is a biological mismatch. The transition from animal fats to vegetable seed oils was not a scientific breakthrough. The transition was a heist, a calculated replacement of stable, expensive biological fuel with unstable, cheap industrial lubricant. The human body is built to burn fat, but not all fat is created equal. The cell membranes of the human brain require structural integrity. When the body builds cells using stable saturated fats, the structure stands like a stone castle, impervious to the elements. When the body is forced to build cells using unstable polyunsaturated fatty acids from seed oils, the structure is built of dry straw. One spark of inflammation, one moment of stress, and the cellular structure collapses. Oxidative stress begins. The body begins to rust from the inside out. The industry calls this progress. The industry calls this nutrition. But the medieval craftsman would call this poisoning. The medieval mind understood a simple truth that modern science has obscured. If a food cannot survive in the open air without rotting, it will not survive inside the warm, oxygen-rich environment of the human body. The symptoms are already present. The heavy fatigue after a lunch of fried food, the brain fog that descends in the afternoon, the aching joints that weather forecasts predict. The modern doctor prescribes pills for these symptoms, but the medieval cook would simply point to the frying pan. The question must be asked, why did the world switch? Why did humanity abandon the fuel that powered the construction of cathedrals and the forging of steel in favor of a byproduct that was originally classified as toxic waste? The answer lies in the dark history of industrial manufacturing, where waste became gold and health became a secondary concern to profit margins. Planned obsolescence is a term usually applied to light bulbs or smartphones, products designed to break so the consumer must buy more. But what if this concept was applied to the human metabolism? What if the dietary guidelines of the last century were not designed to extend life, but to accelerate consumption? Before accepting the heart-healthy sticker on the bottle of canola or soybean oil, consider the source. Consider the chemical violence required to extract oil from a hard, dry seed. Consider the bleaching, the deodorizing, and the hexane solvents. Compare this to the rendering of leaf lard. Heat, time, and gravity. One is a laboratory product. The other is a biological resource. This investigation will not just look at history. This investigation will dismantle the chemical lie of the modern diet. The focus will shift to the molecular level, exposing why the medieval heart remained strong on a diet of grease and why the modern heart fails on a diet of oil. The evidence is hidden in the chemistry of the carbon bond. The evidence is hidden in the dusty archives of the soap and candle industries of the early 1900s. The time has come to stop eating industrial lubricants. The time has come to reclaim the forbidden fats of the past. But first, the audience must answer a question. When the last meal was eaten, perhaps a meal cooked in healthy vegetable oil, how did the body react? Was there energy, or was there a sudden, heavy crash? That crash is the sound of the body rejecting a poison. Tell the story in the comments. Does the kitchen contain butter and lard, or does it contain the yellow bottles? The answer may determine the future of personal health. To understand the poison, one must examine the origin. The story of modern cooking oil does not begin in a kitchen. The story begins in a factory floor, covered in toxic sludge. In the late 19th century, the cotton industry faced a massive problem. For every pound of cotton fiber produced, the mills were left with hundreds of pounds of useless, toxic cotton seeds. The seeds were trash. The seeds were illegal to dump in rivers because the oil suffocated the fish. The industry was desperate. The industry crushed the seeds to extract a dark, bitter, inedible oil. This oil was fit only for lighting lamps and making soap. It was a lubricant. It was a fuel. It was never intended to enter the human mouth. But then, a technological shift occurred. Electricity arrived. The demand for lamp oil and candles collapsed. The soap makers, Procter & Gamble, were left with millions of gallons of toxic cottonseed oil and no buyers. The corporation faced a choice: bankruptcy or innovation. A German chemist named E.C. Kayser presented a solution. The process was called hydrogenation. By blasting the unstable liquid oil with metal catalysts and hydrogen gas at high temperatures, the liquid turned solid. The dark, smelly sludge became a white, creamy block that looked exactly like lard. In 1911, Procter & Gamble launched Crisco, crystallized cottonseed oil. The marketing campaign was aggressive. The corporation gave away free cookbooks. The corporation paid hospitals to use the product. The message was clear. Animal fat is dirty. Industrial factory fat is clean. The world was sold a lie. The human population began consuming a candle wax byproduct, believing the substance was food. The method of production remains unchanged today. Walk into a modern soybean or canola processing plant. The air smells of sulfur and gasoline. The seeds are not gently pressed like the olive. The seeds are ground and bathed in hexane, a neurotoxic solvent derived from crude oil. The hexane dissolves the oil from the seed. To remove the solvent, the mixture is boiled at extreme temperatures. The oil turns rancid immediately due to the heat. The oil turns gray. The smell is unbearable. To make the product sellable, the industry bleaches the oil using acid-treated clay. The industry deodorizes the oil using high-pressure steam. The final product is a clear, odorless, tasteless liquid. But chemically, the liquid is a corpse. The antioxidants are gone. The vitamins are destroyed. What remains is a chaotic soup of oxidized lipids. The chemistry explains the danger. The difference between the medieval fat and the modern oil lies in the atomic structure. Imagine a chain. In saturated fats like lard or tallow, every carbon atom holds onto a hydrogen atom. The chain is straight. The chain is strong. The chain packs together tightly, which is why lard is solid at room temperature. This saturation protects the molecule. Oxygen cannot attack the chain because there are no openings. The fat is stable. The fat waits patiently to be burned as fuel. Now look at the seed oil. The molecule is a polyunsaturated fatty acid, PUFA. The chain is bent. The chain is missing hydrogen atoms. These gaps create double bonds. A double bond is a structural weakness. A double bond is an open door for oxygen. When these oils are heated in a frying pan, or even when exposed to light in the bottle, the oxygen attacks the double bond. The chain snaps. The reaction is called lipid peroxidation. The oil becomes a free radical cascade. When a human eats this oil, the free radicals enter the cell membranes. The cell membrane is the fortress wall of the cell. If the wall is built of stable animal fat, the wall holds. If the wall is built of oxidized seed oil, the wall crumbles, the cell leaks, the mitochondria suffocate. The body screams in a language called inflammation. The medieval peasant knew nothing of carbon atoms or double bonds. The medieval peasant knew survival. The peasant raised a pig. The pig was a biological refinery. The pig ate scraps, acorns, and grass low-density energy sources. The pig converted these inputs into leaf lard. Leaf lard is the visceral fat surrounding the kidneys of the pig. It is the purest fat in the animal kingdom. The rendering process was a ritual of patience. The fat was chopped and placed in a cauldron over a low fire. The water slowly evaporated. The connective tissue crisped into cracklings. What remained was a liquid gold that poured clear and set snow white. This substance was not just food. This substance was a tool. A layer of lard poured over potted meat created an anaerobic seal, blocking out bacteria and oxygen. Sausages were preserved in jars of lard for the entire winter. The fat did not go rancid because the fat was chemically calm. The medieval diet relied on this density. A peasant working the fields for 12 hours could not survive on salad or bran alone. The caloric math does not work. Grain provides 4 calories per gram and triggers an insulin spike, followed by a crash. Fat provides 9 calories per gram and burns slowly. This is the metabolic state known today as ketosis. The medieval body was a hybrid engine, capable of burning glucose when available, but thriving on the deep, steady burn of animal fat during the long, cold months. Modern science calls fat artery clogging. But the archaeological record contradicts the claim. The arteries of pre-industrial populations were clean. The obesity epidemic did not exist. The diabetes explosion coincides almost perfectly with the introduction of Crisco and the replacement of animal butter with margarine. The modern failure is a failure of stability. The modern diet is built on volatility. The body is being constructed from materials that degrade at body temperature. It is like building a house out of dynamite sticks. The structure stands for a moment, but the slightest spark brings catastrophe. The medieval house was built of stone. The lard, the tallow, the suet, these were the stones. The investigation has uncovered the crime. The swap of stable biological fuel for unstable industrial waste. But the proof requires more than chemistry. The proof requires evidence from the grave. The next section will open the archives of the frozen north and the boglands, where containers of butter and fat have been pulled from the earth thousands of years old, and yet impossibly still edible. The claims made in this investigation require proof. The modern skeptic demands peer-reviewed studies. The historian demands physical artifacts. The investigation provides both. Consider the peat bogs of Ireland and Scotland. These cold, acidic wetlands are nature's time capsules. For centuries, turf cutters have struck hard objects beneath the surface. These objects are not rocks. These objects are wooden kegs, carved from single tree trunks, sealed with bark. Inside the kegs lies a substance that defies time. Bog butter. Museums currently hold specimens of bog butter dating back 3,000 years. The butter has turned waxy and hard, but the chemical structure remains intact. The fat did not rot. The fat did not turn into a toxic sludge. The fat waited. If a modern bottle of heart-healthy corn oil were buried in the bog, the plastic would remain, but the oil inside would have degraded into a rancid poison within months. The ancient dairy fat survived civilizations. This is the ultimate proof of saturated stability. But the evidence is not just ancient. The evidence is visible in modern toxicology. When vegetable seed oils are heated to frying temperatures, the oils undergo a violent chemical degradation. The breakdown creates a class of compounds called aldehydes. Research from De Montfort University in Leicester has measured these toxins. The findings are terrifying. A meal of fish and chips fried in vegetable oil contains 100 to 200 times more toxic aldehydes than the daily safe limit set by the World Health Organization. Aldehydes are mutagenic. Aldehydes alter the DNA structure. Aldehydes are linked to neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's. The medieval cook never faced this toxicity. Lard has a high smoke point, but more importantly, lard has a high oxidative stability index. When the peasant heated lard to sear a piece of venison, the fat merely became hot. The fat did not break down. The fat did not become a gas of neurotoxins. The kitchen remained safe. The food remained medicine. The modern medical establishment suppressed this data for decades. The Minnesota Coronary Experiment, a massive study conducted in the 1,970 seconds, tested the saturated fat versus vegetable oil hypothesis on 9,000 mental hospital patients. The group eating vegetable oil lowered their cholesterol, but the group eating vegetable oil also died at a higher rate. The data was buried in a basement for 40 years until recovered by researchers in 2016. The conclusion was clear. Lower cholesterol does not mean longer life. Vegetable oil killed the patients. The science is settled. The history is clear. Now, the responsibility shifts to the individual. How does the modern human escape the seed oil trap? The solution is not found in the pharmacy. The solution is found at the butcher block. Step 1. The source. Do not buy the white blocks of lard sold in the baking aisle of the supermarket. Commercial supermarket lard is often hydrogenated to be shelf-stable, treated with BHT preservatives, and bleached. This is not the target. Go to a local butcher. Ask for leaf lard from the pig or suet from the cow. These are the hard, visceral fats. Often, the butcher will throw this away. The butcher may sell the fat for pennies. This is the most undervalued nutritional resource in the modern economy. Step 2. The rendering. The process of turning raw fat into shelf-stable gold is simple physics. The goal is to remove the water and the connective tissue. Cut the cold fat into small cubes. The smaller the cube, the faster the render. Place the cubes in a heavy cast iron pot or a slow cooker. Set the heat to the lowest possible setting. Do not boil the fat. Melt the fat. Over the course of 3 to 4 hours, the kitchen will not smell of grease. The kitchen will smell faintly of meat. The cubes will release liquid clear oil. The tissue will shrivel and float to the top. These are the cracklings, or gratons, a medieval delicacy, salty and crunchy, superior to any potato chip. Step 3. The filtration and storage. Pour the hot liquid through a fine cheesecloth or a coffee filter into a stoneware crock or a glass jar. The liquid will look like apple juice. As the liquid cools, a transformation occurs. The liquid turns opaque. The liquid turns snow white. The result is pure, rendered energy. Tallow, beef fat, is hard and waxy, perfect for high-heat searing and frying potatoes. Lard, pork fat, is softer, creamy, the ultimate secret for flaky pie crusts and tender pastries. The economic math. The modern consumer pays a premium for extra virgin olive oil, much of which is adulterated with seed oils by the time it reaches the shelf. The price is high, $15 to $50 per liter. The craftsman buys 5 kilograms of beef suet for $10. After rendering, the yield is 4 liters of pure tallow. The cost is pennies per serving. This is the economic freedom of the medieval way. The system relies on the consumer being dependent on expensive, branded, processed products. The system fears the individual who buys raw waste materials and converts them into premium fuel. By rendering fat, the individual steps out of the industrial food chain. The individual stops eating the candle wax of the 1,911 corporation and starts eating the fuel of the 1,011 warrior. The frying pan ceases to be a source of inflammation and returns to being a vessel of nutrition. But the journey is not just physical. The journey is philosophical. The final section of this investigation will address the mindset required to maintain this lifestyle in a world designed to poison it. The conclusion will challenge the viewer to decide. Are you a biological organism, or are you a profit center for the medical industry? We stand at a crossroads of biology and industry. For 50 years, the modern world has been conducting a massive, uncontrolled experiment on the human species. The hypothesis was that laboratory-created fats were superior to the natural fats that sustained humanity for 200,000 years. The results of the experiment are now visible in every hospital waiting room, every pharmacy line, and every statistics chart regarding heart disease. The experiment has failed. The arrogance of the 20th century was the belief that nature could be optimized. The industrialist believed that a seed could be tortured into yielding oil, and that this oil could replace the animal fat that the human genome evolved to process. This was not science. This was hubris. The medieval peasant, often dismissed as uneducated and primitive, possessed a wisdom that the modern PhD has lost. The peasant understood that food is not just calories. Food is information. When the body receives saturated fat, the body receives a message of safety. The body receives the materials to build strong cell walls, to produce hormones, to fuel the brain. When the body receives oxidized seed oil, the body receives a message of chaos. The system panics. The system inflames. The system breaks. To reject the seed oil is not merely a dietary choice. To reject the seed oil is an act of rebellion. It is a rejection of the consumer identity. The consumer eats what is cheap, convenient, and advertised. The consumer is sick, tired, and dependent. The consumer lubricates the body with the waste products of the cotton industry and wonders why the machine is rusting. The craftsman takes a different path. The craftsman understands that health is not purchased. Health is built. The craftsman is willing to do the hard work, to go to the butcher, to render the fat, to clean the jar. The craftsman values quality over speed and stability over convenience. This is the medieval way. It is not a call to live in the mud or to reject electricity. It is a call to reclaim the lost logic of the past. It is a call to look at the modern world with skepticism and to demand that which is real. Look at the pantry one last time. Look at the yellow bottles. They represent the lie. They represent the trade of human vitality for corporate profit. Do not pour that oil down the drain. It is toxic to the water supply. Throw the bottle in the trash, where it belongs. Then, find the fat. Find the butter. Find the tallow. Cook a meal that smells like the hearth fires of ancestors, not the exhaust vents of a factory. Feel the difference in the blood. Feel the clarity in the mind. The fog will lift. The inflammation will subside. The body will remember what it feels like to be truly fueled. The industry will continue to shout, "Heart healthy," from the shelves. The television will continue to advertise the margarine. But the truth is written in the chemistry, and the proof is buried in the bog. The past has survived. The question is, will the modern viewer survive the present? Become the craftsman, render the fat, reclaim the health,